I still remember the exact moment my whole world tilted sideways, and I need to tell you about it before I lose my nerve. My name doesn't matter right now. What matters is that I stood in a crowded auditorium, watching my daughter walk across a stage in a cap and gown, and I felt proud in a way that made my chest ache. But that pride lasted exactly 4 minutes. Because when I turned to find my wife's face in the crowd, to share that moment with her the way we'd shared everything for 22 years, she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at someone else entirely, and smiling. That smile stopped my heart cold. I knew that smile. I had spent 2 decades falling asleep next to that smile, waking up to it, chasing it during hard years when money was tight and we barely had $2 to rub together. It was the smile she gave me on our wedding day, soft and secret, like she knew something wonderful the rest of the world didn't. Now it was aimed at a man I had never seen before in my life. Tall, gray-haired, standing just behind her with his hand resting lightly on her lower back like it belonged there, like it had always belonged there. I told myself there was an explanation. Maybe he was a colleague from her office, someone she'd mentioned once and I'd forgotten. Maybe he was an old friend visiting town. I walked toward them slowly, weaving through parents hugging their graduates, my heart thudding louder with every step, and when I finally reached her, I said her name. She turned. And here's the part one still cannot fully explain to you, the part that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning. She looked at me the way you look at a stranger who has wandered too close on a crowded sidewalk. Polite. Blank. Nothing. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" she said, and laughed a little, the way people laugh when they think someone has mistaken them for somebody else. My daughter, standing beside her in her graduation gown, went pale as paper. She grabbed my wife's arm and said, "Mom, stop it, that's not funny." But my wife just tilted her head at me, studying my face like I was a puzzle she couldn't quite place. The man beside her stepped forward, protective, and asked if there was a problem here, sir, in a tone that made my skin crawl. "I want you to understand something about my wife. She was not a cruel woman. In 22 years I had never once seen her play games with someone's feelings, let alone mine. So when she stood there looking through me like glass, I didn't feel angry. I felt terrified, because something was deeply, fundamentally wrong, and I had no idea what. My daughter pulled me aside, tears streaming down her face, and whispered words that made the floor drop out from under me. "Dad, Mom's been telling people for 6 months that you left us, that you walked out. Everyone believes her." I stood frozen in that hallway while my own daughter explained a version of my life that had never happened. According to my wife, I had abandoned our family in the winter, packed a bag, and vanished without a word. She had grieved me, my daughter said. She had cried for weeks. And then, 3 months ago, this other man had appeared in her life, kind and steady, and slowly my wife had started smiling again. My daughter had believed every word of it, because why wouldn't she? Her mother had no reason to lie about something so devastating. That night I drove to our house, the house I still had a key to, the house where my clothes still hung in the closet, where my name was still on the mortgage, and I found it completely empty of any trace of me. Not gone in the way of someone packing hastily. Gone in the way of someone erased carefully, deliberately, over time. My photographs had been replaced with new ones. My side of the closet held a stranger's clothes. Even my toothbrush was missing from the bathroom cup. Whoever had done this hadn't just lied about my absence. They had spent months constructing the physical proof of it. I called our family doctor, frantic, half convinced I was losing my mind, and what he told me sent ice down my spine. 6 months ago, my wife had come to him alone and reported that her husband, me, had suffered a sudden psychotic break and left the state, and that she feared for my safety and for hers. He had gently suggested grief counseling. He had never once suspected he was helping her write the first chapter of a story designed to make everyone who knew us believe I no longer existed in her life, while I had, in fact, been traveling for work exactly like every year before. The truth came out slowly, the way truth does when someone has buried it deep enough. My wife hadn't fallen out of love with me overnight. She had been having an affair for nearly a year, and when the man asked her to build a life with him, she realized divorce would cost her the house, the settlement, everything she'd quietly been moving into hidden accounts for months. So she chose something colder and far more calculated. She decided it would be easier, cleaner, more profitable, if I simply disappeared from the story altogether. Not through death, but through a lie so complete that even our own daughter would believe her father had chosen to leave them behind. I confronted her 3 days later with bank records, phone records, and my doctor's confused, horrified testimony, and for the first time that blank stranger's mask cracked. She didn't apologize. She looked at me with something close to disappointment, like I'd ruined a plan she'd worked hard on, and said quietly, "You weren't supposed to come home early." Not sorry I hurt you. Not sorry I lied. Only sorry that I had returned before her story was finished, before the man beside her at graduation became permanent, before I became, in every legal and emotional sense, a ghost in my own family's life. My daughter believed me the moment I showed her the phone records, and she has not spoken to her mother since, though I've told her that door should stay open a little, for her own sake, not her mother's. As for me, I filed for divorce within the week, took every document to a lawyer who looked genuinely stunned by what he read, and started rebuilding a life I never asked to lose. Some nights I still see that smile in my mind, the one meant for me for 22 years, now given freely to a man who had no idea he was standing inside someone else's carefully erased marriage.